Yes, the jockey Olivier Pellier became the first French winner of the Epsom Derby in 35 years with his victory this afternoon on the outsider High Rise. It was a race in which most of the fancied horses underperformed. The favourite, Cape Verde, could only manage 9th place.
It is one of the highlights of the racing calendar, but as Epsom welcomed the biggest crowds for many years, 3 of the leading contenders nearly missed out. Early morning fog in Ireland delayed the arrival of the horses, including the second favourite, Second Empire, until a couple of hours before the start of the Derby. But that certainly didn't deter the punters, with the bookies estimating that total stakes this year had reached more than £40 million. One horse everyone will be looking out for is Frankie Dettori's mount, Cape Verde, aiming to become the first filly for 82 years to win the world's most prestigious flat race. This was a derby destined to be dominated by the unfancied horses, with none of the favourites challenging for the lead at any stage along the mile-and-a-half course. But for High Rise and City Honours, it was to prove a scintillating finish. Peter Bromley is the commentator.
25 yards to go. High Rise and City Honours in a photo. High Rise wins it. City Honours second. A photograph for third between Sunshine Street and Border Arrow. Greek Dance was only fifth.
It could hardly have been closer. The 20-to-1 outsider High Rise in front by a head, and a first Derby triumph for the French jockey Olivier Pellier, who allowed one word to sum up his feelings. Alleluia! The prize for Pellier's efforts, a small matter of £500,000, and a celebration in the winner's enclosure he may have seen somewhere before. Paul Newman, BBC News, Epsom.
England's cricketers, especially pace bowler Dominic Cork, continued to apply the pressure on South Africa during today's third day of the first test at Edgbaston. By the close of a day affected by bad weather, South Africa were 192 for 5, needing another 71 runs to avoid the follow-on. Cork had taken 4 wickets.
Darren Gough, nursing a broken index finger, might be England's #1 strike bowler, but Dominic Cork, playing in his first test for 15 months, stepped very happily into the Yorkshireman's boots. With just 6 runs on the board, he forced Jerry Liebenberg to give substitute fielder Ben Spendlove the simplest of catches. And soon after, the Derbyshire all-rounder got the better of Gary Kirsten, aided by Mark Butcher's athleticism in the slips. Jacques Callis and Darrell Cullinan then combined to stage a South African rearguard action. Cullinan, though, lucky to survive a clear-cut stumping chance off Robert Croft, Alex Stewart failing to gather the ball before breaking the stumps. Not much luck for England's other bowlers, but Cork soon picked up his 3rd wicket of the day. Callis giving Stewart the opportunity to make amends for his mistake, ending a 3rd wicket stand worth 81 runs. After just 6 more had been added, Hansie Cronje became Cork's 4th victim, the South African captain repeating Liebenberg's error to give Spendlove another catch at short leg. Angus Fraser ended Cork's monopoly though, his hard work paying off just before the close. Cullinan playing on to leave South Africa 71 runs short of avoiding the follow-on. Dominic Cotton, BBC News.
The England footballer Teddy Sheringham has issued a qualified apology for his late-night drinking sessions in Portugal earlier this week. In a statement, he referred to the problems his actions had caused to the England squad and to his family, and he agreed he'd been unprofessional, but there was no specific apology for the drinking itself. The England coach Glenn Hoddle said he was disappointed with Sheringham's behaviour, but has confirmed that he'll still be part of the World Cup squad.
The morning after, a couple of nights before. A contrite Teddy Sheringham emerging to eat public humble pie, accompanied by the FA's Public Affairs Director David Davis, who, it can be assumed, at least co-authored the players' statement.
I want to apologise for the problems my actions have caused to my teammates, to the England coach and his staff, to my parents and to my son. I would also like to apologise for not taking Glenn Hoddle's advice in every detail in how I acted over the period that I was in Portugal. I accept there was a lack of professionalism by me in not realising how my actions were likely to be interpreted.
This was how the newspapers interpreted Sheringham's chosen nocturnal activity in a Portuguese nightclub last week. The England coach gave him a ticking off, but also a let-off.
I'm very disappointed with what he did. It goes without saying, but the lad has apologised. The main thing for me is I've watched him very closely in the last 2 days in his training, and it hasn't affected him at all.
That fitness argument, along with a World Cup rule banning late squad changes without good medical grounds, probably explains Sheringham's pardon. There were no signs, though, of extracurricular activities affecting the preparations of England's first World Cup opponents, Tunisia, who today beat Wales in Tunis by 4 goals to 0. A timely reminder, should Glenn Hoddle need it, that anything less than 100% fitness and form from his players will be asking for trouble in France. Steve McCormack, BBC News.
Scotland's build-up to the World Cup finals has been less troubled. The squad are quietly settling into their training camp in a small village near Avignon in the south of France and have already attracted some local support.
The small picturesque town of Saint-Rémy could hardly be said to be en fête about the arrival in its tranquil midst of the Scottish team. The discreet bunting aside, you'd scarcely know this delightful corner of rural Provence was part of the millennium's biggest sporting tournaments. The welcome, though, has been genuinely warm, especially from star-struck local schoolchildren who, for the benefit of the TV cameras at least, can be persuaded to adopt an allegiance. Though they're facing the biggest match of their lives against the reigning champions before the eyes of the world, the Scots have adopted the relaxed air of their surroundings. Coach Craig Brown's only acknowledgement of the feverish expectation back home, one simple promise.
You know, we're hearing when we left we were going to win the World Cup and things like that. Well, we want to say that we will do, in fact we know we will do the country proud, because you will get maximum effort. And if we lose, the only reason for defeat that I think is acceptable is that we were beaten by a better team.
Craig Brown already knows the team he'll throw into the cauldron of the Stade de France on Wednesday night, and he insists none of his players will be intimidated. Even so, he's unlikely to accept an invitation to take them along to the local equivalent of a bullfight here tomorrow. Kevin Geary, BBC News in the south of France.
England suffered a record 76-0 defeat in the Rugby Union test against Australia in Brisbane. They hadn't previously conceded more than 45 points in 127 years of international rugby. England coach Clive Woodward described the outcome as a freak result.
No amount of national passion and support can make up for an almost complete lack of experience. Playing Australia at the Suncorp Stadium is not the time or the place to blood 5 new caps, as the home side were to chillingly demonstrate. England initially defended bravely, Kefu scoring Australia's first try after 29 minutes of incessant pressure. The resistance had been broken. 1 minute later, Australia scored a second. Ben Hume's exquisite kick ahead, setting up fly half Larkham. England coach Clive Woodward had made no secret of his unhappiness at taking such a depleted squad down under. How right he was as defeat turned to massacre. Larkham here completing a move started on Australia's line. The margin of defeat was a record, but it may not last very long. On this tour, England have still to play the world's finest teams, New Zealand and South Africa. Ben Munro-Davis, BBC News.
Tennis, and Spain's Arantxa Sánchez-Vicario took the French Open title with a surprise victory over America's Monica Seles. The 26-year-old Spaniard won an exciting final 7-6, love 6, 6-2. It was her third French Open title to follow victories in 1989 and 1994. Afterwards, she said it was a victory for the game's older generation. Finally, David Coulthard is on pole position for tomorrow's Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. He qualified 0.06 of a second ahead of McLaren teammate Mika Häkkinen. Peter.
An American politician has apologized to the veteran entertainer Bob Hope after he mistakenly announced Mr. Hope's death in the House of Representatives. The congressman made the statement after reading false information on the internet. At the time, the 95-year-old comedian was sitting at home eating breakfast.
5 years short of his century, America's oldest funny man is hardly in his prime, but he is still very much with us, which is why he and his family were surprised when politicians in Washington suddenly paid tribute to his memory.
Mr. Speaker, I have the sad responsibility to tell you this afternoon that Bob Hope passed away.
Within minutes, the word had flashed around the world. The old stager, famous for his entertainment of American troops, had passed away, while he was in fact at home in California, eating his breakfast.
He gave a big hearty laugh and he said, well, I'm still here. And, you know, he's having a good time and a little bit put off because he couldn't get out to the golf course.
It's been Bob Hope's month. 3 weeks ago, he received an honorary knighthood. He's just had his 95th birthday. And now, after a news agency accidentally published his obituary on its website, he's won the ultimate honor from Congress, a eulogy and an apology on the same afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, I regret this announcement, and I look forward to many more happy memories and from a wonderful entertainer and a distinguished American.
The last laugh in this comedy of errors was had by the man himself, paying a late-night visit to the supermarket to prove, like Mark Twain, that reports of his death were greatly exaggerated, and to inspire the headline writer's dream: hope lives on. Bill Turnbull, BBC News, Washington.
And the main news again. An airlift is going on tonight to rescue foreign nationals from the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. That's all from the BBC Newsroom tonight. From Rob and me, good night.